Good morning. Today we're going to be speaking with Ashlee Maxwell about how the pandemic has affected her in her life as a homeschool student. Good morning, Ashlee. How are you doing today?
Good morning. I'm good. Decent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, my first question for you is what was your initial thought when you heard about the pandemic? Like before it actually even hit the States, what were you thinking when you heard that something was happening in China?
Well, I was like, wow, some idiot ate a bat with a disease in him. And, like, I don't know. I was like, is it going to come here? Is it going to spread? Or is it just going to stay over there? Like,
Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. So, what was your response when the first case hit Seattle and it then became more real? What was your initial response?
well, I didn't, like, know when the first case hit because, like, I didn't keep up with it. And then, like, when it started getting more of a big deal, I was like, so, like, this is kind of like happening. Like, we have some sort of, like, swine flu or something coming into the United States, and we might have to, like, be careful and lock down and stuff. And then we ended up locking down. That was fun.
So, when you first heard of the lockdown, what was your initial response to hearing the word lockdown and not necessarily having ever done it before?
I was, like, more concerned about having to be locked in our house with just our family because that's difficult. But I got used to it.
Since you're already homeschooled and you're already around your family pretty much 24/7, what would you say was the biggest change?
It would be not having all the freedom to go out and do, like, activities with friends and stuff. And, like, I don't know, like, you can't go out and you can't, like, eat a normal. You can't, I don't know, you can't, like, it's not normal anymore. Like, you'll always have one person judging you, whether it's anti-maskers or maskers. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, you're gonna be judged, and it's not normal anymore. And everybody in the United States is kind of like frisky.
Frisky.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So when things started like opening up again and like we thought we were going to be going relatively back to normal, but we didn't, how did you feel about having to wear a mask in public and be more careful around other people?
I was personally, like, fine with wearing a mask because, like, then nobody can recognize you. You're perfectly fine. What's the problem? I don't know. And, like, if people are gonna be, like, mad at you, I'd rather not confront people, and I'd rather, like, keep to myself. I don't want social interaction if I go out. Like, it was never you go into a store and you get, like, harassed by someone, or, like, you get weird looks by someone. It was just you go in, you get what you need, you leave. And now you always have one person looking at you, judging you. At
Whether or
least.
not you wear a mask, like
Yep.
it doesn't matter
Mm-hmm.
in the long run. It really doesn't matter what you do. You're going to be judged.
Yep.
Fair enough. That totally makes sense. Now, we both know that our parents are very anti-maskers.
Mm-hmm.
How do you feel about the mask mandate personally?
I personally, like, I think it's necessary. I feel like if y'all would just wear your masks and, like, kind of be more cautious, I think we could get over this, and I think it would be perfectly fine. And, like, the United States would be back up and running again, and we could be somewhat normal. Not all the way, but somewhat. But if you continue to not wear your mask, continue to get all up in people's faces when you think you're right, and, like, it's just gonna keep spreading. Because if even if you don't have symptoms, you could still carry it. And if you're carrying it and you're going out, that's not exactly helping the cause.
The cause, yeah, that makes sense. So, with talks now of a vaccine rolling out and people now thinking about making that mandatory, like the masks mandates, how do you feel about a COVID-19 vaccine?
I mean, I feel like, I don't know, because, like, I kind of want to see what it does to people first, and, like, if they need to make improvements to it, or, like, if it works, it works, and if they're gonna mandate it, take it. But I'm not gonna be able to because of parents.
Yeah, so if it wasn't up to mom and dad on whether or not you took a COVID-19 test or vaccine, regardless, like, would you get the vaccine?
I would personally get the vaccine if I saw that it was working in other people and that it could possibly cure the United States and we could go back to normal.
Okay, so maybe not right now at its initial rollout, but maybe sometime soon you would actually take the vaccine.
Yes.
Okay, fair enough, fair enough. Now, you haven't really got to go out or do much of anything with like mask mandates and whatnot. But if you could travel, what would your best suggestions be to other people?
I would say you do need to get like COVID tested before you go somewhere to protect people like that are just trying to live their life like where they're native to, and like if you're going to travel to a foreign country, you definitely need to take all the right precautions, like quarantine yourself like 14 before days before you like leave so that you're protecting yourself and other people. And once you get there, I do think you need to still take precautions just cuz it's nicer for the people that live there. But if you're going like, I don't know, to like a place that is infested with it, like there's a ton of cases, I do think you should either not go or be like really on your mask game and stuff.
Do you think we will ever get back to what we were pre COVID?
I don't think it'll go completely back. I think we'll get somewhat back and people will be somewhat normal, but you'll always have those people that are like, oh my gosh, like, how dare you? Like, they're judging you. Like, they're not going to be like, okay, we're back to normal. It's like, okay, we're back to normal with some added things. Like, they think it's normal, but it's never going to go back to what it was.
So obviously you're 14. You are on the younger side when it comes to like what is happening in the pandemic. How do you think this has affected like your friendships? Has COVID-19 made interacting with other people your age more difficult, or has it caused any stress in your life?
Well, with the friend that I already had, it was easier and we kind of got to hang out a little more because she wasn't always busy with doing stuff. But with like meeting new people, I was always cautious and I was always like, what are you comfortable with? Because I don't want to step into your boundaries and I don't want you to hate me. So it was always like very careful. But once you know they're comfortable, it was just kind of easy to get to know people. It was easy to interact. But if like they weren't comfortable, you kind of had to step back into their comfort zone so you're not invading their personal space and stuff.
How has it been like talking to people your age about COVID? Do people talk about it? Is it a discussion as much as it is around people that are more impacted by it every day in like the older generations?
Well, they do tend to try to like talk about it at church and stuff, and they're always on like hardcore Trump side, and like I don't know. I try to stay away from it. So like when they do talk about it, I do tend to walk away. I don't try to engage because I don't think at our age you should one be worrying about politics, two be worrying about a pandemic that like you're not really suffering for. I mean, yeah, you don't go to public school, you don't get to do a ton of stuff, but it's not affecting you personally. It's affecting your parents. So if you're going to talk on the pandemic, you should talk from like your perspective, not how like, oh my gosh, the COVID, it's like bringing down paychecks and stuff and it's ruining people's lives. Like, don't talk from that perspective. Talk from your perspective, not what you hear other people saying.
So you think that kids really don't understand what's going on at all right now?
I think some do, but I think some are just totally oblivious and take what their parents say and spit it back out.
Like politics.
Yep.
So when kids are talking about this and they're pulling politics into COVID-19, why do you think it is that kids seem to be more into politics now than they ever have been?
I honestly don't know why they're more into it now, but I do feel there is a lot more children getting involved in politics, and I don't think that's what you should be worrying about at your age. I think you should be more worried about like the next friend you're going to make, like worried about what you're going to do as a child, not worried about something that you can't worry about until you're 18. Like you can't vote till you're 18. Why worry about it? I mean, yeah, you're going to worry about like who gets elected, how is it going to change my life? But overall, it's not something you can argue on. You don't have liable control or anything. Like
Yeah, like you are just a bystander at this point.
Yep.
That makes sense. That completely makes sense. Now, if we were to go back in time, pre pandemic, and you could tell yourself that this was going to happen and you needed to prepare yourself for this moment, what would you tell yourself in March of 2020? What would you have told yourself?
I would have told myself to go make like a few more close friends so that I didn't only have one at the start of the pandemic, so that I would have like a few options and I wouldn't have to keep hanging out with one. And I would probably tell myself, you don't have to hang around your family all the time. It's okay to be isolated sometimes.
It's okay to go off into your own little world if you need it.
Yes, very much so.
What do you think has been your biggest saving grace during the pandemic? What has kept you sane during this entire process?
I definitely don't think I could be trapped in the house with everybody if it like wasn't for you. If you hadn't moved in, I don't think I could have, like, I would have gone insane. Like, it would have been bad. And you're just here and you get me out of the house and like we go do things and we talk and like everybody like wouldn't do that with me. So since you moved in, it's definitely made the pandemic way easy.
Why would you say, like, me in general is the reason why?
Because you're like sister, like it's not like brothers. Like I didn't have a sister to talk with, and now I do. So like it's not like talking with Connor and Brayden because like they don't get it. They're just brothers and they don't care. They just focus on Minecraft and stuff. With you, I can talk with and we can go out and we can go shopping and like we can do stuff.
Okay, so if I wasn't here, what would you have done to cope with this pandemic?
I probably would be in my room 24/7 crying because mom doesn't go outside. Dad just goes to California and like flips out on people. Like it's just hard to be with them during the pandemic because they're all one-sided and they don't try to experiment or like open up to other people's views.
Okay, so you say our parents are one sided and that they only see things their way. Do you think that most adults only see things one way and most adults are one sided? Or would you say that that's just a our parent thing?
I would say once you get to like a certain age, you think you know, you're like set on what you want. So like you don't really change your views much. But I feel like if you would open up, you could like tend to like learn more views and you wouldn't be so one-sided. But I feel most of them close themselves off, and since they're the elderly, they know more and they treat you like, even if you're like 10 years younger than them, they treat you like you're just a child. Like I do think they should open up and try to not be so focused on their one belief or whatever, because it is having a toll on the United States right now.
Okay, so would you say that Gen Z, your generation, is more open minded than, let's say, Gen X or Gen Y?
I would say they're somewhat open minded, but I do think they are very close minded also because they are very close minded on Biden's side. It's like you almost have no winning. It's either older generation Trump, younger generation totally Biden. Like there's no in between unless you get to like the certain millennials, or like there's a few people that are smart and there's a few people that are just dumb. So like
So you think that millennials are more open minded than even Gen Z?
I very much do think so.
Why?
Millennials, they tend to like listen to your point of view more, and like Gen Z over here, none of them can barely vote, so they're over here like Biden, Biden, Biden. Like you can't vote. What is your point of view? You can't vote. You're not going to change the outcome. You're going to go out and you're going to protest or whatever. Yeah, you might like get into a few people's heads and you might scare them, but like what is that ultimately going to do for you? They don't open up and they don't try to listen. I don't think you should be like hardcore one side. I think you should be willing to talk about things. I don't think you should, when somebody comes up to you to try and talk, I don't think you should be like, no. Like I think you should talk to them. Share
Okay.
both of your sides.
Are most people in your generation, like their parents are Trump supporters and their kids are Biden supporters?
Yes.
Why do you think that is?
I think it's one because they don't want to like follow in their parents' footsteps somewhat and they feel like they need to separate, and two because they just don't agree with Trump very much because Trump's hard to agree with sometimes, but I feel like both of them are hard to agree with. I don't know. They're just a weird generation.
Gen Z in particular is a weird generation?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think that's just because you guys are still relatively young and you guys don't really know all that goes into politics?
I do think that's part of the reason, but I also think it's because Gen Z likes to think they're superior and that they're like the saving grace of the United States or whatever. Because they do act like, oh my gosh, we're gonna blah 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 burn down the White House to this song, blah blah. Like, no, you're not. You're wimps. No, you're not. You're kids. What are you gonna do? Get arrested? Like, they tend to think they're higher up, and they tend to think they're the hierarchy, but really they're not.
So when you can vote and you have finally hit that like threshold of when like basically you're an adult, when you're an adult, are you going to try and keep these view sets, or do you think that you're going to slip into what everyone else slips into and become a one-minded person? Like, do you think that you as a person will be able to stay this open-minded when you become an adult?
I would like to try my best to stay open minded. I don't want to fall into single minded. I want to do my best to keep my views and then hear other people's views, like, and incorporate them. Like, I think if everybody would just incorporate their views and come together, it would be so much easier.
Okay. Well then, last question. It's a big one though, so it's personal. If you could have voted in this election between Trump and Biden, what would you have done when you're trying to keep the middle ground? What would you have done in that view sense when you're basically choosing the lesser of two evils, as you keep saying? Like, you're having to pick that middle area. What would you have done on this election, and what would you have suggested to others if you could have voted in this election?
Well, I do think I probably would have gone with Biden, one, because Trump has no idea what he's doing most of the time, but neither does Biden. But, like, I don't know. I feel like between the two, Biden would be the better option because Trump, we've seen him in action. We've seen what he does. We see that he can't keep to things. We've seen that he can't like, what is it? He can't like he says he's going to do stuff, but he never does it. And then he says one thing and he means the other. Like, he was one of the first presidents that like before he got elected, he said, "I will protect the LGBTQ community." And he got into office and he's doing the complete opposite. Biden, and like, I feel like Biden, I think we should give him a shot. We haven't seen him in action. We haven't seen him like mess up yet. Trump's had a few mess ups, but I feel like either way you're gonna mess up. Everybody's gonna mess up somewhat when they're in office, but I feel like Biden will be better for the United States right now, for out of the two sides.
So you're thinking literally just right now, what is the best for the country? Not necessarily like will always be best for the country, but what do we need right now to get through?
Definitely Biden, because Trump's not holding up the United States well right now.
Okay, so you think that that's the like Trump is one of the main reasons why things have been so rough during this pandemic.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, this has been a very enlightening conversation. Thank you for taking the time to chat with me. I appreciate it. I know you didn't really have much of a choice because, you're stuck at home with me, as you said, but I do appreciate it. Is there anything else that you want to say in closing?
Be smart. Don't be stupid.
Use your brain.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thanks, Ash. It's been great, and I really appreciate you taking the time, like I said, to sit and chat with me. And I'm glad that, like, we do have your generation coming in that will hopefully start making some, making some good changes in the world. Your generation's going to make mistakes just like my generation and just like our parents' generation, but I'm really glad to see that your generation does have a chance at making it better. So thank you.
Yeah.